Good morning, good afternoon. How is everybody doing today? I hope the members enjoyed the live last night. I know me, John and Claire did. Interesting how the bear was going off when we were asking questions. Some of the things that were coming out, just awesome. Scotty has posted the history over on members area, so you can actually read the history of the location last night. Good afternoon, Judith, or is it morning? Well, technically it's afternoon by 1 minute. Yeah. Dear. So I've had a lazy morning this morning. So I hope everybody's okay. We have got some history to read up on. The last one I read was the 17th of October, and we're now on the 26th. So, morning, Diane. Morning, Oracles. Morning, Brad. I hope everybody is well. Sending love to everybody across the water. Hey, Rachel. I hope you're good, my lovely lady. So, tonight we are going to be doing a chit-chat. Chit-chat's going to be with a bit of difference. John's off to the football tonight with Rob. So, Yolanda's coming here. So tonight it's going to be a ladies' chit chat. There's going to be myself, Yolanda, and Claire. Hopefully, I've not messaged Claire yet to tell Claire that she's on tonight with us doing a live chit chat. So yeah, it's the ladies' night tonight on chit chat. So hopefully, between us all, we'll come up with some really good topics to discuss. Get a few opinions going in there. Just remember to respect everybody's opinions and beliefs, because just because you believe it's one way and somebody believes it another, there is no right and wrong, is there really? We just have to agree to disagree in a polite manner. So yeah, so I'm going to start this morning off with the 17th of October history. I forgot you're way ahead the US in hours. Oh, Brad, what time? I mean, here it's just gone 12 o'clock after dinner time. Not sure what time it is over there, Brad. I'm glad you're good, Rachel, my lovely. So, 17th of October, the London beer flood. Hey, Joyce. Rather like the Boston molasses disaster, sounds like an opportunity to be flippant. In truth, though, neither event was any laughing matter. What began at the Meox and Company Brewery in Tottenham Court Road on the 17th of October in 1814 left 8 people between the ages of 3 and 60 dead. It's at 4 a.m. Wow, there's a big time difference. First, a huge vat containing 135 imperial. Nanny Lynn's trying to ring me, the nutter. Imperial gallons, 610,000 litres of beer ruptured. As beer gushed out, it tore through other vats. As a result, more than 323,000 imperial gallons, 1-470000 litres was released. The result was a tidal wave of beer. More than half the volume that would fit into the Olympic-sized swimming pool which knocked down walls, cascaded into the streets, and destroyed everything in its wake. As the Times reported, the destruction of brick walls caused roof timbers to tumble, houses were flooded, and even wholly destroyed. Eleanor Cooper, a barmaid at the nearby Tavistock Arms pub, you could hardly make it up, was killed after being buried under the resulting rubble. In the neighbouring slum of St Giles, people lived squashed together in a poor-quality house that was demolished by the waves, and for all the wire talk, the reality perhaps of people lapping frantically at pools of beer. The destruction done was very severe indeed. In the aftermath, people hushed their voices so they could hear the noise made by trapped victims. The smell of stale beer in the area lasted for months, as did the job of clearing up and treating those who was wounded, if not killed, by the floods. It was, the Times noted, a distressing tank deserving warm approbation. So yeah, I think I'd have liked to be flooded with beer, but not to that extent of flooded with beer. That's got to be, wow, couldn't even imagine that, could you? 18th of October. It's one of history's greatest acts of vandalism. one that every Chinese pupil learned about in great detail. Today, in 1860, during the Second Opium War, British and French troops burned and looted the Chinese Empire's beautiful summer palace. To this day, art collectors in Britain and France testify to the riches they robbed and to the wanton destruction of so much else. While the damage was not wholly unprovoked, it is scarcely Britain's finest hour. It is scarcely Britain's finest hour. In a bid to open up China to Western, particularly of course to Britain, trade a second Opium War, as it is known, was fought from 1856. The British refused to allow China to keep out shipments of Indian opium. France joined the British side while the Chinese regime faced the massive Taiping Rebellion, was unable to mount significant resistance. As Anglo-French force approaches Beijing, an advanced delegation sent to negotiate was imprisoned, tortured, and effectively murdered. In retaliation, the British High Commissioner, Lord Elgin, son of the 7th Earl of Elgin-Marble notoriety, ordered the Summer Palace's destruction, 8 times larger than the Vatican City. Its grounds contained pavilions, palaces, temples, bridges and halls nestling amid gardens and lakes. For over a century and a half, workers continued constructing elaborate waterworks, buildings and landscapes with appealing names like the courtyard of the University Happiness. That autumn the complex was empty apart from the eunuchs and the other servants. The imperial entourage, having retreated, thousands of troops kindled fires that lasted for days and which killed servants hiding within the building. One Pekingese dog was seized and presented to Queen Victoria, which she named Lucy. You can scarcely imagine, wrote one British participant, the beauty and magnificence of the places we burnt. He called it wrenching, demoralising work, and in this history has tended to agree with him. Hey, Nanny Lynn. Hey, Jules. Nanny Lynn, fancy phoning me. Afternoon, Andrew. 19th of October. Rainwater sheeted down the castle walls and thunder cracked overhead as a king lay dying. It was a fitting context for the death of one of England's least impressive monarchs. By the time King John eventually died, today in 1216, his empire, which had once spread across the British Isles and part of western France, consisted of the East Midlands. Prince Louis of France occupied much of his kingdom, welcomed by a notability driven to rebellion by John's misgovernment. Attempts to rehabilitate King John stumbled on the unbiguous accounts left by contemporaries. He was a very bad man, wrote one. He was greatly hated, but whenever he could, he told lies rather than the truth. He hated and was jealous of all honourable men. These characteristics had already alienated key allies, and that was before his demands for ever more taxation to fight disastrous wars to defend Normandy. Defeated, he invited further opposition by refusing to honour Magna Carta, precipitating rebellion and foreign invasions. Just before his death, he had travelled across the Wash to Lincolnshire, where his baggage train was lost in the quicksand. Men, good holy relics, and animals were washed away with the tide. Even the crown jewels were apparently swallowed by the mud. Shorn of his kingdom and his treasures, the hopeless king had left that day. Dysentery soon relived him even of that. Retiring for the last day of his life to Newark Castle, he died a gut-wrenching death. Given his unpopularity, it was rumoured that he was poisoned, or according to other sources, had drunk bad ale, or even a surfeit of peaches. I don't know what that means. If it was dysentery, I can't say that word, it saved his dynasty. With the hated John dead, his 9-year-old son suddenly looked more attractive option than a French prince, and noble rallied once again to the plangent cause. That's okay, Nanny Lynn. We've only got a few more of these to go. I might only do a couple more and then catch up on another day. 20th of October. Maria Teresa's father had denied her an education. She was not allowed to ride a horse. She was not allowed to discuss affairs of the state. She was encouraged to draw, paint, play music, instruments, and dance. It was very poor training for a woman who would become one of the most important rulers of Europe. Today, in 1740, when her father, the Holy Roman Emperor, Kings, I think is it 5v1, died and left her as his heir. At the age of 23, Maria Theresa found herself, she later recalled, without money, without credit, without army, without experience and knowledge of my own, and finally also without any counsel. She would need all of the above within weeks of her accession. Several of Europe's strongest states refused to recognise her right to rule, and her empire was plunged into war. Enemy armies swarmed across some of the most precious territories. King Frederick of Prussia immediately invaded the province of Silesia, turning Prussia into a leading European power and himself into the Great. Maria Theresa was determined to fight. She taught herself to ride to impress her Hungarian subjects and won their support in an emotional session of the parliament in Budapest. She forced reluctant commanders to go to the offence and against fierce odds, maintained the Habsburg grip over most of its territory. The War of the Austrian succession lasted 8 years. In that time, Maria Theresa had 7 children. Few warlords in history have had to overcome challenges like those placed in her path, yet she preserved and reinvigorated her empire, giving it the strength to survive into the 20th century, when it had appeared to be on the verge of disintegration. Hey, Jay, Lisa, hey, Gemma. I know, afternoon. I keep thinking it's morning. 21st of October. She became the lady with the lamp, a ministering angel who glided through hospital wards tending to wounded soldiers. She was one of the first celebrities created by Britain's mass media, the perfect vessel for a headache blend of beauty, patriotism, piety, and devotion. Today, in 1854, that journey began as Florence Nightingale left Britain with a team of volunteer nurses that she had trained herself. She was bound for Securita, now absorbed by modern Istanbul, and the hospital packed with the wounded and sick of the Crimean War. Nightingale had inherited money and a social conscience from the humanitarian parents. Travel stoked this instinct to use her wealth and position to help others. Surrounded by the majestic ruins of an ancient Egypt, she felt that she was being called to God. She immediately enrolled for a spell of rudimental medical training in Germany. Returning to England, she worked as a superintendent at the Institute for Care of the Sick Gentlewomen, before the outbreak of war gave her the opportunity to tend to those less fortunate than herself. When she arrived in Scutari, she found squalid wards packed with men. Hygiene and sanitation were ignored and prevented able diseases tore through the weakened patients. She improved food and imposed basic hygiene practices like the washing of hands. She used the Times newspaper to address the British public and the politicians alike. She shamed the authorities into sending out a team to fix the sanitation and was central to their decision to get Isbamard Kingdom Brunel to construct a prefabricated hospital and ship it out. After the war, her fame gave her the ability to fundraise and influence government policies. She effectively invented the modern nursing profession by founding the first proper training institute in London. She lobbied for better sanitary conditions in hospitals and slums alike. Her battle for clean, hygienic hospitals, homes, and workplace is thought to have boosted life expectancy in Britain as much as any single 19th century medical breakout. Wow. I'm back again. Morning, Shelina. Back again, just talking to my best friend. She lost her dad, so I'll keep her. Oh, Jules, send her I love my lovely. And I'm so sorry that she's lost her dad, sweet. Just let me get in a bit more comfortable position. I'm going to send loads of healing, my lovely. So yeah, if you're in that, that's fine. We're all here for you, so we're all here for your friend as well, Jules. what I'm going to do, I'll continue reading to 26, but in between, I'm going to update. So tomorrow night is tarot night reading. So I will be live around about 8 o'clock while 9. And then I think I might do pendulum in members 9 while about 10. Yeah, that's on tomorrow night's agenda. Thursday night, I can't remember what I said. So Thursday night is members. We're going to be live in members, either with a workshop, some reading, some looking into things more in depth. So yeah, there's going to be a bit, and then weekend we'll see how the weather is. Cast, we've got a big night on Sunday for our Halloween. Oh, Amelia, thank you, sweets. Mwah, love you, duck. Sunday night we've got a massive night ahead of us, because it is our Halloween special. Hey, Mav. It is our Halloween special, and yeah, it's going to be a good one. We can't find really much history on that for any hauntings or anything being seen, I don't think. But it dates back to before the 13th century or around the 13th century. So it's got the history that we all love. And where there's history, there's got to be something. Whether we get the interaction, whether we can catch the shadowy figures of the past, who knows? But it's going to be a phenomenal night. So get ready for Sunday night, everybody, because it is going to be really good. So what date am I on? October 22nd. The passage had been brutal. Gales had battered the fleet ever since it had left the Mediterranean. Poor visibility and high seas meant that the commander, admiral of this fleet, Sir Cloudesley Chevelle, was uncertain about their precise position. Today in 1707, he hove to and had his ships checked the seabed in depth and composition. The lead man, standing on the side of the ship, legs wrapped around the shrouds for stability, dropped their lead plummets into the water and called out the depths at which they hit the bottom. They were then hurled into the examined. They were then they hurled them in and examined the tallow on the lead, which would bring up a specimen of seabed, mud, sand, or clean, meaning it was rock. From these readings, the navigators felt confident that they were in the channel and could now run east towards Portsmouth with the gale at their back. It is Nanny Lane. It is the place that you did history on. At 8 p.m., sharp-sighted lookouts spotted waves breaking over submerged rocks and the glow of the lighthouse. With horror, experienced hands realised that it must be the lighthouse of St. Agnes, the southernmost of the large islands in the Sicily. Oh, I hate these long words. Not good for dyslexics, are they? Archipelagos. The Silices are graveyards of ships, inaccurately placed on charts of the time. The jumble of reefs and rocks and the islands lay in wait for battered ships and crews at the end of long voyages. They had destroyed thousands of vessels over millennia and were about to claim their most famous victims. Warning shots were fired to alert the other ships, but the lumbering square riggers were impossible to manoeuvre, and the wind and current forced them towards the jagged lines of the rocks. Chevelle's flagships, HMS Association, went down with all hands. The Eagle hit tearing ledge and sank with no survivors. As many as 2,000 men died. 4 powerful ships were lost. It was one of the worst maritime tragedies in British history, yet it has led to great advance in navigation technology. Such was the outcry that Parliament set up a prize for anyone who could accurately determine longitude at sea, as so often tragically spurred innovation. It is Nanny Lynn, yeah, the place where you've done the history for us. So we're not giving any history out. We're going to do a little bit when we're there, but what we're going to do for Halloween is we're going to give you a little bit of history. We're not going to name the place we're at just because we want to make it so Google doesn't come into place. Nobody goes having a little quick look about to where we're going. You're doing great, Lindsay. I can't read out loud. It comes, oh, Di, I'm shocking at reading. I think I need to go back to school. But I done my dad. I'm not bothered. I read as I read, and I read what I read in the way it's pronounced to me. I'm shocking for it. So yeah, and then what we're gonna do is the following Tuesday after Halloween, we've got Paul Goddard joining us for a chat. But also we're going to bring Nanny Lynn on. And what Nanny Lynn's going to do is she's going to rewatch, because I don't think Nanny Lynn can watch it on the night, so she'll be watching it on the Monday probably. And then hopefully what Nanny Lynn's going to do is she's going to watch through, validate the history that comes out, the names if they come out, anything else that comes out. Nanny Lynn is going to validate for us on Tuesday. If I've got this all right, I think I've got it right. So I don't want Scotty doing the history. And the reason I don't want Scotty doing the history on this one is because I want Scotty to use his abilities. Just like we've all got abilities. I want him to try and hone in on his. Because Scotty does the history on everything, so it'd be nice to see if Scotty can pick something up that's not in the history, and also it gives him a night off to just enjoy the night in general, so he's not having to come off the laptop and look for different histories. So yeah, and also it's a great night for you lot to test your abilities too, to really put down in chat what you see, feel, anything you hear, and even if it's not part of the, say we go into a room and somebody might say, well, I'm picking up the Victorian era, or I'm picking up I don't know, a Saxon era or whatever. I want you to put that into the chat on Halloween, because that is history that we can look back and see relates to that. It might not have nothing to it, and it's not, you're not gonna, and nobody's gonna be embarrassed by anything, because it is just to see how we all feel from different rooms. So I want it to be like a change around this Halloween, and if it goes well, then what we'll do is we'll try and incorporate that into other lives that we do as well, so it gets you guys more involved. Not just listening and hearing for things that are coming out, but also if you get a feeling, it doesn't matter whether it's got a connection or not, it is just so you can start working on your intuitions when it comes to a spirituality base, if that makes sense. So yeah, I not had a chance to ask if John got his ECG results. He gets them on Friday. Monday. We've tried phoning doctors up. I tried phoning doctors up. He's on his tablets. But what have they said now? When I phoned up last Thursday, the woman on phone, the receptionist, said they can no longer give the results out. It's got to be a GP, and his GP can't phone him till Friday. So I then phoned back and said that's outrageous, because that's just putting more stress, because it's causing the worry. And all the only thing they said was, well, you've got to phone back early in the morning to get an appointment, which unfortunately we've not done. So yeah, so we've only got till Friday to go, but John's not overly worrying about it. These tablets seem to be helping a little bit, so people can open up more. Yeah, Nanny Lynn. Yeah, so he's not worrying. These tablets seem to be helping slightly. He's still feeling tired. He still feels a little bit breathless, but nowhere to the extent of how he was feeling. So yeah, we'll see what results say. I think if it had been anything serious, though, I think they would have had to get in touch with us. And if they haven't, and it is something serious, they're going to be having me and the surgery kicking off big time. So yeah, October the 23rd. In our age of omens, this was a bad one. Today, in 1091, as the conqueror's son sat on the English throne, a freak tornado struck his capital and destroyed the wooden London Bridge, along with numerous churches and hundreds of houses. It was a terrifying, bewildering event. The course of the lower Thames is marshy and flat. The site of London's bridge was the most downstream point where a permanent crossing was visible. London as a settlement depended upon its bridge, and it was only when this was built by the Romans, guarded by the permanent garrison, that a trading community expanded into Britannia's capital. This may have been London's bridge since the Romans spanned the Thames. The first stone bridge was built by the penitent King Henry II with a chapel to Thomas Becket, his murdered Archbishop and a popular Londoner. In the centre, it is known as the Chapel of St. Thomas on the Bridge. Henry II's bridge was completed after more than 3 decades under King John, his successor, but one. It was in part to recoup the cost that building upon it was encouraged, and the medieval bridge is known for far more than 100 shops that lined it, along with the toilets who users perched above the river. Nice. It is known too for the impact in the 19th arches had upon the flow of water, meaning both that the river surface was more likely to freeze during cold winters and that a difference in water level on either side made shooting it perilous. The bridge, it was said, was for wise men to pass over and for fools to pass under. By early in the 19th century, the need for a new bridge was clear, and one was built during the 1830s before Queen Elizabeth II opened the current one, sadly unencumbered with shops and chapels in 1973. Well, lunch is over, haven't? Oh, Gemma, have a great day, my lovely, and we'll see you later on tonight. I hope you're not working too late, sweets. Yeah, 24th of October. It was the end of a war and the beginning of a new world order. Today in 1648, the Treaty of Westphalia marked the end of one of the most devastating and prolonged conflicts in European history, the 30-Year War. It had begun as a religious conflict within the Habsburg Empire. Protestant subjects of the Catholic, would it be Protestant subjects of the Catholic Empire had famously thrown his representatives out of the window in Prague. He had responded with repression, and Protestants around Europe rallied in support. It coincided with a period of global cooling that ruined harvest, created hardship, and ensured that there was an audience of desperate, hungry people willing to serve in armies or listen to preachers of violence. The great powers of Europe, which rarely needed much provocation to try to seize territory and booty from their neighbours, threw themselves into the fighting, and the resulting conflict cost the lives of hundreds and thousands, while millions more died from the famine and disease. The peace process was glacial. There were 194 states represented by 109 plenipotentiaries, I don't know. For the first 6 months, there was an impasse over protocol, seating plans and orders of presidents. It took 3 weeks to organise today's signing ceremony alone. The term of the treaty had ramifications for the future history on the continents arguably as significant as the war that produced it. Private freedom was a coincidence from guaranteed. Conscience was guaranteed. The ability of states to set their religion free from interference by the empire was strengthened. Habsburg power in Germany was curtailed. Spain's period of hegemony was brought to an end, and France looked set to replace it. Above all, the treaty represented the birth of the idea of community of sovereign states governed by a mutual agreed set of rules, away from the celebratory banquets. However, large areas of Central Europe were blighted for generations. It was a great war, remembered for centuries, until it was escapaded by first one and then the second even greater war. I can never pronounce. Hey, Gillian, my lovely. Do you know, Nanny Lynn, my words and pronunciations are shocking. So what's everybody, do you know, looking on history that we go back through, that we read back through, do you think things could have been learned by things in history, or we could have dealt with things better in the upcoming years? And do you think it'll ever change? If you do think that we haven't learned many lessons from things that happened in history, do you think it'll ever learn? Do you think things will ever get better? Do you think at some point somebody's going to say, right, enough's enough, we've tried that 18 million times and it's failed, we need to change the way? Do you think somebody's going to have the balls to do that? Or do you think it's just going to continue as it is, that the wars and the poverty and everything else that shouldn't be happening now is still happening, but it's still got remnants of the past in. So we can never let go of the past. Do you think that's right? Do you think it's wrong? Let's see what you guys think while I have a cold mouthful of tea. What's your thoughts? Getting cramp in my leg. Sat in my chair funny, and I've broke this chair. I've broke my bed chair. Do you know? Says to John, I'm sure this chair's got a lean on it. In hindsight, yes, totally agree, Nanny Lynn. I broke my chair, so I'm gonna have to try and buy a new chair. Because it's a recliner. It's not actually a bed, is it? It's a recliner. Well, I think, you know, when I'm asleep, I think I've turned too sharp, and it's got a right lean on this, so it's not doing my back any good at the minute. So yeah, I think that's why I'm struggling. If we haven't learned anything from the last two wars, we never will. Yes, but do you think, looking at it that way, Gillian, is it because the people that are in charge are still going by, they're not living in the dated times, they're still living in a previous time where back then it would have been, I don't know, would have been not the right thing to do, obviously, it never were, but do you think that the future generations coming are going to be strong enough to make these changes? I know we use the word snowflake a lot now for a lot of the younger generation, and they hate it, but they are so laid back, and I think the older ones prefer the change to the younger ones. Do you know? I think the older ones are ready for the change. I don't think the younger ones can see what the older ones, where the older ones are coming from on that. I don't know. Is it me just talking shite? Who knows? October the 25th. It is a magnificent quipped, one veteran witness, but it is not war. Today, in 1854, British cavalrymen launched a suicidal and utterly pointless assault against Russian lines during the Crimean War, known as the Charge of the Light Brigade. During a battle outside the city of Balaklava in the Crimea, a partial series of misunderstandings, miscommunications, and inexperienced commanders hungry for honour sent 676 men and horses of the Light Brigade ramping towards Russia's artillery, which enjoyed a clear field of fire. The astonishingly brave cavalrymen in neat lines broke into a trot down a valley. Russian troops on high ground on either side opened up and withering crossfire. A trooper in the 17th Lancers said later it was as if hell had opened up on us from front and either flank. They forged on and broke into full gallop as they neared the Russian guns at the end of the valley, which responded by blasting them with grape shots. Thousands of small projectiles that scathed down men and horses at point-blank range. Remarkably, they overran the guns, but lacking the ability to disable or drag them off, they had no choice but to run to the gauntlet of the valley again, back to their start point. The Light Brigade suffered 40% of casualties, and 475 horses were lost. Blame for the misunderstanding leading to the slaughter has remained controversial, as it is the original order was vague, and the officer who delivered it died in the first minutes of the assault. The event was subsequently immortalised by poet Alfred Lord Tennyson in The Charge of Light Brigade. The British, who loved nothing better than spectacular heroic amateurishness failure, instantly adopted it as one of their most beloved national poems. It always has been, Julian. Always has been. Religion, money, and power. I think everything's the butt of that. To be honest, it's what causes all the problems. October 26th. So we're on it today. We're back on today's. There has been a Lionheart, a bloody, a conqueror, and an unready, or more accurately, poorly advised. But there had only been one king in English history who was simply the Great. Today, in 899, Alfred the Great of Wessex first king of the Anglo-Saxons, breathed his last in his most important city, Winchester. Posterity had been particularly kind to Alfred. It was only in the 16th century that he referred to as the Great, when his interest in sea power, promotion of English, and defence towards continental foes put him very much in vogue. But there is no question that he earned his epithet, E-P-I-T-H-E-T. Alfred saved Wessex, the last surviving Anglo-Saxon kingdom, from occupation by the Vikings. In 878, a surprise assault sent Alfred fleeing into the marshes at Alderney in Somerset. Anglo-Saxon England was reduced to a few square miles of swamp, a refuge king and a handful of supporters. From the slenderest of foundations, Alfred rebuilt an army, forged weapons, and boosted morale with guerrilla strikes against the Vikings and counterattacked. By May, he had gathered an army together and struck boldly. He found a Viking force in Wiltshire and routed them at the decisive battle of Ethelmund, generously in victory. He persuaded their leader, Guthrum, to be baptized, at which ceremony Alfred himself stood as Guthrum's godfather. He then agreed a peace treaty with the Vikings. They could keep East Anglia, but must withdraw from Alfred's beloved Wessex. The case for great is built on much more than this one brilliant campaign. Seeing the value of education of statesmen and soldiers, he founded a school. He built fortified towns, boosted tax revenue, launched a fleet of ships, and professionalized his army. He was a devout Christian under whom the church flourished, and the lover of books and law. Alfred provided his successors with a strong foundation to move north and east into Viking-held land. He, his son, and grandsons not only survived the Vikings' onslaught, but eventually brought the whole of England for the first time under one Anglo-Saxon king. So we'll find out what happens tomorrow on the 27th of October. Oh dear. Do you know, I love reading about King Alfred though. I love the history where the Vikings come into play. I love watching. I mean, fair enough, some of it will be a bit far-fetched, I presume, or not even the real truth on it all. But I'm gonna have to turn around now, guys. I've got to turn round because my body's hurting. I enjoyed watching the Vikings. I don't know if anybody's seen the Vikings, but I really enjoyed watching that. The Last Kingdom was another one I've watched. I've watched all the films on kings, queens, and everything else. But I've got a real passion for that kind of history. Not necessarily about the royal family of day to day, but the kings and old kings and queens, and not just of England, of all through England, Ireland, Scotland, Wales, going back to the times when it was all when we were all different sections. I think it's such fascinating history to go back into. But the Vikings era, I definitely like the Vikings era. What's your favourite period? The Viking series was brilliant. Oh, I loved it, Nanny Lynn. I can watch it over and over and over again, just like I can Sons of Anarchy, because I like Sons of Anarchy as well. There's so many programs out there, isn't there, that we can all watch. But I do like the history ones, especially when it's to do with the invasions from the Vikings. I just love the Vikings, how they were. And again, people look at them and think that they're ruthless or whatever, but again, they were a different faith. They were a different. What they did when they come over was horrendous. But would we have done the same if we'd have gone to their countries and invaded? Who knows? But they were tough son of a bitches. Hey dear. And shield maidens. Oh my God. I think they're awesome. Awesome. So guys, I think what I'm going to do now is I'm just looking to see if it's raining. It had forecast a little bit of rain today, so I was going to go for a walk. Well, not a walk as such, but I was going to go out on Big Red and do a little bit of filming out, but I don't think the weather is looking too good at the minute. I think the weather's looking a bit shizer, so I will wait and see. But we will be live later on tonight. Yolanda will be joining me here, and hopefully Claire will be joining me from her home, and we will come on and like I said, we'll have some good topics to talk about tonight, and yeah, we'll go from there. So hopefully everybody have a great day. Love you loads. Mwah. Those of you who are off to sleep, good night. Those of you starting your day, just enjoy, and we'll see you soon. Love you loads. Mwah. Bye.